Hi, I'm Julie Hawks. Welcome to the Laws of Peace, where you will learn how to understand and apply God's laws in simple ways so that you can take small steps to create big miracles and changes and become the person you are always meant to be. The answers are in the scriptures. Let me show you how to find them. Today's episode is called The Fourth Step to Getting What You Want. We are working on the law of attraction this month, and it is more than just saying affirmations and staring at a vision board. It's actually becoming the kind of person that you want to be, and it includes four steps. The first step is desire, knowing what you want. The second step is faith, believing and expecting that you will receive that thing. And the third step is taking inspired action. And the fourth step is gratitude. It's so interesting because the biggest reason why we're not getting what we want is because of fear. Fear holds us back from receiving, it gets in the way. In fact, Raymond Hollywell, in his book, Working the Law, said, when we pray for one thing and then fear and doubt that you will receive it, you diffuse your mental forces and can attract only the lesser thoughts that you believe and expect. So fascinating. And we see the same pattern in the scriptures. Even Job, who had such a challenging life, said this in Job chapter 3, verse 25. He said, for the thing which I greatly feared has come upon me, and that which I was afraid of is come upon me. And then in Doctrine and Covenants 67:3, this one actually really stabs me in the heart. It says, ye endeavored to believe that ye should receive the blessing which was offered unto you. But behold, verily I say unto you, there were fears in your hearts, and verily this is the reason that ye did not receive. We have to eliminate those fears in our hearts, and we need to choose faith when we're afraid. Now, it's important to know that being afraid is normal. It is an everyday feeling that we all feel. That's why there are so many scriptures about overcoming fear. And so, fear is an invitation. It's an invitation to choose to believe, and it's an invitation to gratitude, which is one of the biggest ways that we can overcome our fears. But let's dive a little bit more into the scriptures first before we talk about that and go to a story of somebody whose fears were actually making them literally physically sick. This is the story of Zeezrom. It's in Alma chapter 15 and it starts in verse 3. But a quick backstory is that Zeezrom he was a bad guy and he turned into a good guy. He was out preaching against the church, preaching against Jesus Christ when Alma and Amulek found him and taught him the truth. And he had a change of heart and was converted to the Lord. But shortly after that, Alma and Amulek were sent off to jail in a different circumstance. Now, Zeezrom that's where we find Zeezrom. Zeezrom in verse 3, it starts that Zeezrom lay sick at Sidon with a burning fever, which was caused by the great tribulations of his mind. Isn't that fascinating? He is having physical symptoms because he's got so much fear and challenge going on in his mind. Let me finish the verse. And on account of his wickedness, for he supposed, right, we're seeing an assumption there. He supposed that Alma and Amulek were no more, and he supposed that they had been slain because of his iniquity. He's like, these people died, and it's all my fault. And this great sin and his many other sins did harrow up his mind until it became exceedingly sore. Have you ever had so much worry and so much fear and so much anxiety in your brain that it becomes exceedingly sore? Having no deliverance, therefore he began to be scorched with a burning heat. Now, when he heard that Alma and Amulek were in the land of Sidon, his heart began to take courage. I love that little phrase. His heart began to take courage. Why? Because all of a sudden he's not believing lies anymore. He's not in that fear space anymore because he's moved into hope because he's hopeful that Alma and Amulek are available, that they're alive, that they're going to be okay. And so he sends for them to have them come to him. And when they come in verse 5, they find him, like I said, is sick. They found him on his bed, sick, being very low with a burning fever, and his mind was exceedingly sore. Right? That fear can actually cause us to be physically ill. And then the story, it has a great ending. Alma says, do you believe in Jesus Christ? And he said, yes, I believe all thy words. And then Alma prayed and he was healed. The point I want to make about this, though, is that fear is a very real thing and it has really real consequences. And so, what we need to do is when we step into that fear, when we feel it, when it comes up, first of all, let's not beat ourselves up because we have fear, because everybody has fear. Let's choose something different. And the thing that we want to choose is gratitude. Gratitude can change and and move everything out of the way. It can change our attitudes. It can create power in our lives. Let's listen to this quote by Merlin Crowthers, who wrote the book Prison to Praise. He's a great Christian author. He said, "The very act of praise releases the power of God into a set of circumstances and enables God to change them if it's his design. Very often it is our attitudes that hinder the solution to a problem. The prayer of praise is the highest form of communion with God, and when that always releases a great deal of power into our lives." I don't know about you, but when I'm afraid, I need power. I need God's power in my life. And when we step into that gratitude, it opens us up to receiving God's blessings in a deeper way, and it creates that power that we're looking for. Catherine Thomas, in her book Light in the Wilderness, said this about being grateful. And she adds being grateful for the things that are hard in your life. This is what she said. "The secret to working a gratifying alchemy on trials is to give thanks for all circumstances, not just the obvious blessings, the good things, but the inconvenient events, the annoying, and even the very bad ones too. As spirit-filled principle, it enables the soul to experience a universe richly endowed in the smallest details by the great and present Creator. A second sight develops, which permits us to see the Lord's love radiating in nature, at work both in those around us and in life's daily details. As we express our thanks to Him and to each other, we create a peaceful, enlightened, and spiritual atmosphere. Our thanks replaces the griping, the self-pity, the murmuring against events and people, the feelings of being overwhelmed, the wrenching fear, and also the pride, the arrogance, and the self-righteousness." What she is talking about is that when we're grateful, we're creating this atmosphere, this environment inside of ourselves of peace and steadiness. And that peace and steadiness raises our vibration, raises up who we are, so that we are open to receiving all the things that we want to have come in our lives: better health, better relationships, more money. We need to match those vibrations, and this is the way we do this. I want to share a story with you. Most of you know that 25 years ago, I had a complete breakdown and really struggled to even take care of my children. I just had horrible anxiety, so much fear that I couldn't think, I couldn't eat, I couldn't function in regular everyday life. And once in a while, I had a few moments of peace, a little bit of reprieve. Way back then, the city had come up with, I don't know if it was a group of churches that decided this, but they created a co-ed baseball team, and all of the churches played against each other. So we would go to a beautiful baseball diamond out in Ammon, and it was just huge, and there was lots of beautiful grass everywhere. And we would show up and we would play a baseball game against the Lutherans or against the Catholics or against another LDS ward. And it was so fun. We would, like I said, we would take turns going out in the field. And when we weren't out in the field, my friends and I we would sit in our lawn chairs and we would cheer for our team, and our kids would play in the grass beside us. And one night we were doing this, and I looked around and I noticed that for a few minutes I felt okay. For just a few minutes, I wasn't scared. I wasn't overwhelmed. I wasn't in tears. I felt peace. And I was so grateful in that moment for a moment of relief from this difficult challenge that I was facing. And I remember saying a prayer and saying, "Heavenly Father, please help me to remember how this feels." Because I knew when I woke up the next day that I would be back to where I was before, so scared that I couldn't eat and stop crying. And so I said that prayer, and I chose to remember that. I chose to remember that good in that moment. And the next day, sure enough, I woke up and I was again so distraught and so anxious and so worried and so upset. And I remembered that I'd had those few moments of relief, and I'd remembered how happy I felt and how peaceful I felt and how calm I felt. And that helped me to know that moving forward, that there would be more moments like that there would be more moments of good, that things could turn out and would work out, and that I would be okay. And I was so grateful for that, because to this day, 25 years later, when I'm having a really bad day or when things are going really wrong, I can take myself back into that moment 25 years ago, and I can remember how it felt. And I can remember the peace. And I am so grateful that God offered that to me as a reminder for the rest of my life, that He's always there and He'll always help us when we're struggling. Today, I invite you to choose gratitude. Choose to be grateful. If you can't be grateful for the hard things, then be grateful you had a hot shower this morning and you're not ugly. Be grateful that you slept in a bed last night. There are so many things to be grateful for. And as we shift into that gratitude, our spirits open up enough that we can relax enough that we can hear the answers that God has for us so that we can solve the problems that we are currently facing. God has so many blessings to give us. And there are a couple of little tiny things we can do to open ourselves up to them. And gratitude is one of those things. Today, I invite you to find those things to be grateful for. Thank you so much for being here today. If you have liked this podcast, will you share it with somebody who you know would really appreciate it and could use it? Have a wonderful day.